Welcome to episode 196 of Sports Geek. On this week's episode, I chat CRM, email, and off-season plans with Stacy McGranor from the San Jose Sharks.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who is seeing your tweets come in on TickWatch, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan, and you are listening to Sports Geek. You can contact me via Twitter, at Sean Callanan. I love getting feedback on the podcast, whether it be via Twitter or in real life, which is what I've been doing this week, currently in the US. I'm actually recording this episode. I was planning to record this episode at in Washington Airport, Julie's, I think it is, in Washington, D.C., en route to Montreal, except I'm not in Washington, D.C. Thanks to Mother Nature, lightning, my flight was cancelled. So I'm recording this in Chicago at O'Hare Airport at, I'm sort of losing track of the time. I think it's like midnight. And I've got a few hours, and then I'm going to be getting an early morning flight to finally get to Montreal to C2. So if you've been following my socials, you'll get some updates on C2, but I'll give that a full debrief after the event. So I'm looking forward to it at this stage as I'm recording this, even though I am tired. So this interview, as you can tell, it's the voice is a little scratchy. I'm getting there. I caught up with Stacy McGranor in San Jose. We talk about CRM and marketing and our experience at the Warriors game. Went and saw the Warriors play the Houston Rockets in Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals. And so we talk about the business of sport, what we saw during the game, and then how her role has evolved at the Sharks. So here is my chat with Stacy McGranor, email and CRM marketing manager at the San Jose Sharks. Very happy to be here in downtown San Jose at the Proper Cup, having a coffee with the CRM and email marketing manager.
You got it.
For the San Jose Sharks, Stacy McGranor. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. It's good to see you. Good to be here.
It's good to see you again.
Yes.
We were lucky
it's been
enough.
A long time.
We were lucky enough last night to go to the Warriors game, and so we'll touch a little bit on some of the discussions we had there. But first of all, I want to get a bit of your background.
Sure.
We obviously met at SEAT conference a few years ago. You in the CRM track and myself in the digital track, and we do try to meet up, and that's a good part of SEAT. So, give us a little bit of bit of your origin story. How did you come to the Sharks, and sort of what's been your sports biz story so far?
Sure. So, like the rest of my life, it's been a very winding path. My kind of first foray into sports was with the Columbus Crew, so MLS, back in Columbus, which is home for me. And I was actually on the service side, so I was basically a retention rep working on renewing our season ticket holders, and then also doing a lot of other kind of random things. So I used to joke that my desk was sort of like the kitchen sink. When people didn't know where to put it, they just dropped it on my desk, which is magnificent because I can learn everything.
Yep.
From there, I actually came out here to San Jose with the Earthquakes, another MLS team.
So I want to dial back a little bit, and make sure you can get to your large jug of coffee that we've got here.
Yes. Priorities.
So were you at the Crew at the same time TJ Ansley was at the Crew?
I was indeed. That's how I know TJ Ansley.
Okay.
So one of my very favorite people.
Yeah, so TJ's been a former guest, and he's now back. He was at the Blazers, and now he's back at
he's in the
Columbus.
Jackets. Yes, he certainly is. So, yeah, he did pretty magnificent things on the digital side for us. And actually, I would credit TJ for teaching me kind of a lot of things in terms of what goes on behind the scenes from the digital side of things.
Yep.
Took some of what he taught me and everything I learned in my role at the Crew and brought it out here to the Quakes.
Yep.
And I came out for a promotion, so I became the manager of fan relations, sort of worked my way up. It was a relatively new department in the Quakes offices. So we were basically managing our season ticket holder base, and I still had a book of business and so on and so forth.
So we're starting to get into that data area, but
Yes.
but with that fan-focused customer service piece.
You got it.
Yeah.
And that was the big thing is, so I was with the Quakes from 11 to 14, and we really hadn't made that full kind of leap into the data side of things, but we were starting to actually look at numbers and see what it meant. And we were working on seeding a new stadium. So that was really where data became key for us and trying to figure out who should go where, who's going to want to buy what does this look like,
Yep.
so on and so forth. From there, I actually was able to take my talents to Orlando.
Okay.
And Orlando is really where I got into the data side. I was still on the service side. I think it was client services in Orlando. However, we partnered very closely with their business strategy team. So Anthony Perez, Jay Riola, masterminds in the business.
Yep.
And we were starting to kind of change some behaviors within the client services team. And we took a data-driven approach, and it was marvelous.
Yep.
So I will forever be grateful for that opportunity.
So is that just a bit of you, scratching that itch and
Yes.
getting more and more into the data?
You got it. And weirdly, it was an itch that I really didn't know that I had because I hadn't worked anywhere where they relied so much on data to make decisions.
Yep.
So it was phenomenal. I mean, I joke, and if he's listening, he'll love this, but I joke that my brain has a crush on Anthony Perez's brain.
Okay.
There were so many great decisions that they made and different, experiments that were run, and they were all data driven. So I was really wanting to get back to California and saw the opening for a CRM marketing coordinator position with the Sharks, and was able to pretty much talk myself into a job based on what I had learned between my later days at the Earthquakes and my days in Orlando.
Yep.
Because the goal of the position was to move it out of simply, deploying emails and into, let's talk about segmentation. Let's talk about what it looks like. Let's talk about what we need to know about our customers.
Was
and so on.
CRM journey part of the job description that you applied? Almost everyone is on this journey, and it's like, we need help on this journey. Are you our data Sherpa? Right?
Yes. I would say that we hadn't even really had the journey conversation yet. We
Yep.
just knew we needed to start somewhere, and
Yep.
that position was kind of it was like the starting block is
Yep.
probably the best description I can give. So it has become an immensely encompassing position since I took it, and I was lucky enough to get promoted as manager. So we have taken on a lot in terms of email, but a lot more in terms of data. So for any of the listeners that don't know, one of the founders of SAP is our owner, which means that we are very heavily invested in products.
Yep.
So we use basically the SAP suite of software. So in my time, and I've been there since 2015.
Yep.
So we've launched a new CRM. We've launched a new marketing platform, which is almost like a real-time data warehouse to some extent.
Yep.
And I've learned an awful lot.
Yep. And so with that, you're starting to, once you've got those tools in place, and I think Fiona Green said it best when she's been on the pod, it's not about the tool. The tools are great, but it's like, what's the strategy around the tool? How are you going to use it? Because you can have the best tool in the world, but someone will still come up to you and say, can we send it an email blast to everybody? Yeah. It's like, the tools won't stop you doing that.
Yes.
You can still do that, and it's so wrong. So how do you get past the bells and whistles of, wow, shiny tool, to making sure that you're starting to build out those segments, making sure that you're communicating with, new low touch, just signed up type customers differently to, I've signed up, I'm in, you've got my credit card, don't worry, keep it till I die, right? Like that, they're the scale.
Yep.
How have you sort of started that process of starting to segment and making sure those email comms are different across those segments?
So we are that's sort of a work in progress, I would say, for us. I think we've gotten a lot better at moving folks from the engaging with our brand up through, hopefully, a multi-game purchase. The if you think of it as a bell curve, sort of those two outlier flat lines, that's the space in which we think we have the most room to grow.
Yep.
And that is actually one of my big projects for the off-season, is to really talk about what is this journey, but what are the kind kind of what are those gaps that sit between you don't know anything about the Sharks to you know something to you want to find out more till eventually you buy.
Yep.
And what are the mechanisms that we can use to kind of change people's position on that ladder or on that journey, whatever word you want to use.
And are you looking to I guess, escalate and further engage people to then get them to in front of one of your sales reps, or are you trying to get that sale all the way through email without the sales rep? Are you still trying to prep, hotter leads for your sales team to say, well, this person's ready to go, we think we can engage them now?
Absolutely. And for us, we're starting to look more on the kind of the behavior side.
Yep.
What are these people doing that would make them a lead? Because if we understand the behavior, that's, I think, an easier conversation for the sales reps in terms of, hey, we noticed that you insert whatever here. I think the very beginning of the journey is truly data-driven, figuring out exactly what happens when, and then following kind of the behavior from there. I would say the answer to the question specifically is absolutely. We're never going to not want to sell at any step in the process. What I would say is that where we're playing with changing our mind is what if the sale isn't our goal necessarily? What if it's just great that it happens?
Yep.
Because what we've learned is, and I think this is probably true for a lot of franchises, before we really started having the data conversations, everyone was a lead for season tickets.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to learn that no.
Yeah. It's a classic, it's a classic. You meet someone in a nightclub and you pull out the ring and say, let's get married.
That's exactly right.
It's like, well, it doesn't work like that. You've got to have a few dates. You've got to engage them a little bit, which leads to the other piece, I guess, is, everyone's out there looking for new and fresh leads. And sometimes they go, cool, we've got them now. We try to sell them that. What part of your role, I guess, is to help get those new leads? Is it partly working with the marketing team and what they're doing in digital to say these are types of campaigns or these are activations or these are things, whether they be Wi-Fi popping up and collecting data? Mm-hmm. How much is your team sort of providing advice and strategy to say, well, these are the places that we're getting really good data, guys?
I think I'd probably say it's almost like a three-way partnership between the email and the CRM side, also our business intelligence side, and then our marketing team. Marketing team is obviously encompassing quite a bit, but we are all working very hard to kind of understand well, first of all, what's working and what isn't working. Yep. But then what we're turning around and giving to the sales folks. And yep. I think the word that one of my bosses used a couple weeks ago was the hyper targeting. Yep. So really, truly understanding what it is we need, the content that we need to serve to whom and when. Yep. Again, it kind of goes back to not everyone's a season ticket buyer. So let's talk about the things that might get them in the building. And then it's up to us from an experiential standpoint to continue them up the ladder. But
that three-way conversation is so important, mm-hmm. right? Because so many times I see teams either do a competition or something with a sponsor and you go, oh, wow, this went really well. We got 1,000 emails. And it's like, what'd you do with them? Like, don't know. And they're in an Excel spreadsheet somewhere. Right. Or it's like, if you're not then sending it, passing it on to your data team, to the CRM and say, here they are. They're brand new. They've never heard from us before. Please treat them gently, right? And you go, I'll be the custodian of those new fans, and I want to build them up to be a single game buyer or a 3-game buyer, or potentially come to an event, right? That kind of thing. Yep. If you don't have that connection, it's a waste going at that data because it goes stale so quickly if you don't start engaging with them. So that's part of what you're trying to do on that side to say, what are you running? Where's this data coming from? Okay, I'll put them in this flow. Yep.
The other piece of it is, at least on the marketing side, a lot of us are going on our feelings. Hey, I feel like this worked, or I have a hunch that, or, in my past, this has worked. And so it's really good to have the three-way conversation because we can put data to the feelings, or we can say, your feelings aren't really right.
Yeah. But I also like, especially when you're doing like campaigns to say sell tickets or get people, and you're in the room and people go, no, we must sell them this way. We must use this copy, or the brand person saying it's got to look this way. This is what my brand book looks like, and we've got to have this tone. And you're like, but hang on, we're pitching to these people. And I both love those arguments because they're great. But the other part of it is I go, let's not decide. We aren't the internet. Let's let the internet decide.
Yes.
And let the data show. So you roll out the different types of ads and you go, oh, hang on, the big branded, nicely graphics does, but the photo with just a fan going bananas.
Yep.
And say you must be there, and some short, sharp copy. If that's getting the clicks and if that's getting the sales,
exactly.
It's like let's not let pride get in the way of I want my ad to look beautiful and look like that because that's what I like.
Yep. Absolutely.
It has to be, what the fans click. Just follow the clicks, follow the money.
Yep. One of my very favorite questions in the world is what if, and anything obviously can come after what if, which is one of, I think, the best leaders into A/B testing or ABC or ABCD.
Yeah.
Because to your point, if we can let the internet decide, then we've tried everything. We've tried our feelings. We've tried what the data says. And so no one's injured because we gave it a shot. And, it wasn't anyone internal that decided. It was what happened externally. And at that point, we all win.
Yeah. So we were talking last night about some study you're doing at the minute in business psychology. So how has that helped you and given you some insights on what you're doing in your role and rolling out campaigns like that to sort of get in the, we're all trying to get in the head of the fan.
Yes.
So what have you learned so far in that space?
Oh my gosh, I don't think we have enough time to talk about everything I've learned.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal program. A lot of it, right now, what we're getting into, kind of the first class was almost like a baseline in neuroscience, which was phenomenal. The second was more of kind of organizational intelligence. So a little bit more of how close is the business to what it says it is.
Yep.
So in other words, if you have this vision, mission, and values, how do your behaviors line up with what you say that you do? A big piece of that was the customer logic. So what is it that you, as a business, intend to deliver, and what do you deliver, and then how do you decide success? Obviously, I did the sharks, or used the sharks as my model.
Yep.
And I'm very proud to say that we line up really well with our customer logic and what we say we want to deliver to our fans. It was very interesting to take a little bit more of a holistic look and try to look at it from the economic side as well. Right now, we're working on neuro leadership, which is very fascinating. The next class coming up is the one that we should probably have this conversation after. It's behavioral economics, which is, I think, a big kind of a buzzword in our industry. Kevin Brilliant with the Bulls was one of the first people to introduce me to the idea of that existing in sports. So he's the reason I'm back in school, which thanks, Kevin.
So behavioral economics. As soon as you said that, I just remembered Ferris Bueller. Voodoo economics. It might be the same thing.
It may very well be.
So in that sense, is that pretty much the science and the psyche of the crowds and where people are moving and where the money is moving around that? That's my quick take of what the title is. Is that where it sort of lies?
I think that's some of it. I think the other piece of it too is potentially what we can do to help people part with their money.
Yep.
So, is it where do they sign? How do they sign? When do you pitch? What do you pitch? And making sure that we really are kind of working our sales processes toward what we know the human mind and ultimately the human heart, right? Because in sports, I think if you capture the heart, you can capture the wallet.
Yep.
So if we can start figuring out how to...
It's very much, it is the way it's pitched. And, a lot of the time when I'm talking to people in the US and comparing it to the Australian sports scene and even Europe, the term season ticket holder is not a term that we have in Australia. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. So it's so much member. So
yes.
a lot of the sports organisations are member based,
Yep.
and so I guess the best analogy here in the US is Green Bay Packers.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a member of the club, you're a member of the club, part of the constitution. You have a vote and those kind of things, and so it becomes less of a transactional financial decision,
right?
But it's more of an identity tribal decision to say, oh, I'm a member of my club and it's part of my identity.
Yep.
And
Great word, tribal.
And so it is that. It's part of my psychology. It is part of my identity. I don't look at signing up as a Collingwood member as what's the fee? It's
right.
like if I don't sign up, part of my identity goes away.
Yep.
And so that's very much psychology and like the simple change. And I've seen a few US teams change that from your season ticket base to our members. What that entails, but it just has this sense of belonging, and that's all psychology.
Absolutely.
That's not just a branding exercise.
Right.
It started to flip the switch in their mind to say, and I love it. I love the fact that the AFL as an industry has now got to what I call guilt level marketing. right? So if I meet another Collingwood fan, my first question is, are you a member?
Why not? If
Right?
they tell you no.
But I start shaming that person to say,
Absolutely.
oh, well, you're a fan, but you're not really a fan because you're not a member.
You're fake.
Yeah, and so that's the best. It's the best sales force out there, that you've got your fans saying,
Yes.
"Oh no, you have to be a fan."
Yep.
And so not even talking about product SKUs and how much, how many things, but it's just as long as I've got that card, I'm on board. So
Yes.
yeah, I think that's a real big part of the story.
Yep, absolutely.
That sport sells, and the fact we were talking about it last night, that we're effectively selling hope
Yes.
on a yearly basis.
Yep.
Which leads to the question around the Sharks. Just coming off a playoff run,
Mm-hmm.
lots of excitement, lots of buzz, and you now have to dispel the myth to your friends to say, "Oh, you're out of the playoffs," so you now putting your feet up on the desk and relaxing. So what are your thoughts for this off-season now? Just with the playoff run still pretty fresh.
So I have to say first that I'm sad we're out,
Yeah.
but as I shared with you last night at the game, I'm super pumped for this year's off season. We've got a lot of projects in the work, and a lot of those projects have come from big questions that we're asking internally, which I said earlier, what if is one of my favorites, and we have what ifs all over the place,
Yeah.
and it's magnificent. We had kind of a change in structure in terms of the organization and leadership back in December. So this is kind of the period in which I think we'll begin to put sort of the new stamp on things.
Yep.
And I don't know that any of us knows exactly what that looks like yet. And I think it's going to be a wonderfully exciting journey to try to figure it out. So yeah, we've a lot of meetings, a lot of discussions, a lot of not pitches, that's probably not the right word, but a lot of ideas sort of thrown against the wall.
But you need to have that. Like
Absolutely.
if you just sort of go, oh, this is how we've always done it, then you will just keep doing it. And
Right.
when you have your franchise in that cycle of positivity and and the fans see it on this upward trajectory, and they can buy in on the story.
Yes.
And the people are buying in on hope, which you can sell. It's like, well, what are the cool things can we do that if this and this and this, you can't guarantee what happens on the ice, but if these things happen, how can we maximise it?
Yes, exactly.
And so you're in that mode of, okay, we've got an engaged fan group, we've got an engaged operations, and the players and the coaches are all on board. It's like, well, how can we best leverage this from a business point of view?
Totally agree with that. The other kind of piece too, and you and I've touched on this briefly, is we had such excitement and such buzz in our building and different things that we did throughout the playoffs. And so internally, it's funny because if you poll everyone and ask what happened, why this year, what was it that, it was almost like there were some nights that we felt like we had sort of caught lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
And it was very exciting. I mean, obviously sweeping Anaheim helps, but beyond that, it was very interesting to kind of watch things unfold. So internally, we've had well, what do you think caused it? Well, what do you think? What do you think? And there's a lot of different opinions, which I think is really cool because I think everyone's right.
Yeah.
And so I think everyone's idea in terms of what happened is applicable and is accurate.
And I think on a playoff run, or however short or long it is, it's accelerated than what the regular season does, right? So normally if it's a regular season and if you're trying to roll something out and you're trying to engage the fans, from our point of view, it takes 5 or 6 games for the fans to realise you're doing something, right? To say, oh, we want you to stand at this point, or we're doing this type of activation, or we're doing this on the big screen, or we're doing this on concourse, and it takes it has to be habit forming. But that accelerates in the playoffs.
It
does. You can literally just do it in 2 or 3 games. You're like, we love this. We're on, because they're hyper aware. They're leaning more into the game, and so you get these opportunities of doing these things and go, oh, they're now working. Cool.
Yes.
So how do we extrapolate that out for next season without overdoing it and getting the balance right and that kind of thing?
Exactly.
But that's that's why looking back on, hey, what worked, and then, okay, how do we do it next year? How do we bring in our content team to better amplify it?
Yep.
Where does sponsorship fit in? Because that was really successful. We can point back to what happened last year. So yeah, that's why, again, joking about the off season, that's why it's the busiest time in sports, because you've got to review everything, and then you've got to plan out for the next year and go from there. But an exciting off season ahead.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
Just the last thing, your team. Just for people so they know, what does the CRM and data team look like? Who's in the team? What are the different roles?
So it's me. I'm a team of one, and it's a blast, which means that I don't have a lot of people to direct or to answer.
But you effectively are a resource and a go-to person for all the different teams that say, hey, we want data, or we want to send emails out, or we want to capture it, or we want to run a campaign. You're in on those meetings and a resource for all of it.
And it's really exciting because I have the chance, and I should go back. It's me and an intern. With the season closing out, his days are kind of numbered. We're talking about what the department will look like for next year, so we can revisit that too. But I'm incredibly lucky because I work with a lot of very intelligent, very positive, very optimistic, and very excited individuals. And I get to have those conversations with sales, with service, with marketing, with business intelligence, with our content team. And I also get to touch the other brands. So I get to work on the Arena side, and I get to work on the Barracuda side. So I'm incredibly fortunate to be, the one person who gets to sit down with everyone in the building and say, hey, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Let's try this.
It is so important. Again, the data being the new oil, is the catchphrase, but it's so true because
it is.
The insights you can get from it to say, well, here's where there's money opportunities, and then the fact that you can dive in and say, oh, well, there's a pocket of fans that we have not engaged, and go back to the content team to say, hey, if you produce this type of content for those type of fans, it'll work.
Yep, absolutely.
And once you start getting that knowledge across those teams,
right?
Because it's very easy for different teams, whether it be the digital team, just do it to their putties,
right?
To their digital cheer squad. They know, these people love our stuff, so cool. You can keep doing it, but if we need to increase families at the game or different segments, we have to make sure we produce content. And so getting that data awareness is so important, whether it be the digital team or the commercial team or the ticket sales stuff.
Yes.
It's super important.
It's so helpful in storytelling too. That's the other thing is when, if I have not necessarily objections, but if I have an alternative suggestion for any of those teams, it's nice to take data to those meetings and say, okay, let's test this against that. Because this is what the numbers are showing. You're a subject matter expert. So going back to what we said, let the internet decide.
Yep. So want a bit of a recap. Because we did say we went to the Warriors game, and I'm sure this will be very familiar conversations that a lot of people work in sports biz, go to the game. It's Western Conference Finals. They're, some of the best basketball players in the world are on the court, and we just kept geeking out about the sports business.
We did.
So one of the ones was we're very impressed with the social sign-on and the data capture.
Yes.
So I was talking to Daniel Brew about it afterwards, and it was like, sign up, get us your details, sign up also for ticketing for the new building, and so we're like, yep, tick, that was a good experience. And then the other one was the tiny little triangle video boards that were on the centre. And we're like, that's such a weird shape. It was like a tiny V, and we're like, what could you put there?
Good on you for spotting the ice cream cone.
And then we see an ice cream cone activation. We're like, and we pretty much both stood up and clapped. And we're like, actually, ice cream cone's the only thing. And then there was a champagne flute.
Champagne, yes.
And then there was the beer one. The beer one was only just there. We're like, I don't know if I drink beer in that triangle.
Yeah.
But we did, again, it was just an example of maximising every part of your arena.
Absolutely. Yeah,
of saying, here's this little triangle.
A sliver of the center hung.
Of the center hung. And they're like, who wants triangle? Ice cream guy will love it. So, I'd love to go back to the ice cream guy to find how many ice creams he sold.
Yep,
but
absolutely.
But I thought it was a tremendous way of maximising, the way, the center hung and that type of screen. So.
The social sign-on piece, one of my favorite things about it was, so it was very non-invasive, it was very quick, it was very easy, but I loved that they titled their Wi-Fi Warriors Ground to something that you said earlier, kind of the membership route, I should say. Same idea. As soon as you log into the Wi-Fi, you're on Warriors Ground. And I thought
and it
that
fits
was a
in
really
with the whole
cool
strength
thing.
in numbers and that kind of stuff.
I loved that. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I geeked out on my own phone. I have so many screenshots from last night.
Yeah. And the other thing I was saying previously, Kevin Akers used to work at the Warriors was because I was telling you last night, because the roof is dips down, and so it's not, it's a sunken roof, and because it's typically comes so close to the court, they're able to put the Wi-Fi and DAS route points on the roof rather than under the seats where they normally sort of sit. So it's a unique stadium. It's only got a couple of seasons left, but the Warriors do wring every single piece of tech they can out of the arena. So,
and they do it very, very well. Very well.
So to finish up, the Sports Geek closing 5.
Yes.
Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
So I have gone back and forth in my own mind, and I'm just going to have to tell you that I think it's a tie. Maybe it happened on the same day.
Same day? Oh, you're double-headed. Wow.
I grew up, as I mentioned, in Columbus, so I'm not sure if it was an Ohio State football game or if it was a Cincinnati Reds baseball game. It had to have been one of the two. My dad would have taken me to Ohio State, and my mom would have taken me to the Reds. So I'm going with a tie between the two. And my parents love me enough for the doubleheader, or they love me enough to hand me off to the other one.
Very good, very good. And you would have been to a few sporting events in your time. Do you have a favourite food memory of some ridiculous food that's now on offer in sports venues?
Favorite might be the wrong word, but interesting for sure. I think it was 2 summers ago. We were at a Seattle Mariners game, and they had the spiced grasshoppers, I think it was.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of these.
So thankfully, it was another doubleheader day, and we had gone to the Sounders game, so my palate was a little desensitized. But I definitely had a grasshopper, and then I shared the rest. But I couldn't not have them. I had to try them.
Yeah, well, that is one of the weirdest that has been suggested. I don't know if I could do a grasshopper, but again, if my taste was desensitized, as you say, I might. So I might have to go to a Mariners game just to check out the grasshoppers.
I don't know if they still have them, but if they do, it's $8. You get a little plastic thing. You'll share. You'll make friends, I promise.
$8, that's outrageous. I get my grasshoppers for $2 down at the market.
Or you get them for free, just swing down the street.
Damn, overpriced food in sports venues, $8, really. What's the first app you open in the morning?
So email usually comes first. I've got personal work and school on there, so email is almost always first. From there, I do love Instagram. I think Instagram stories are a lot of fun to wake up to.
Yep. Is there someone that you suggest the Sports Geek podcast listeners should follow, whether it be someone you've worked with who does a great job or someone you're reading at school or that kind of thing?
Thrive Global is one of my very favorite pieces out there. I think technically it's Ariana Huffington's, but it's one that I absolutely gravitate to on all of the social media apps. So anywhere I have access to it, I click through at least probably 6 or 7 articles a day. LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever the case may be.
She is a super impressive woman. I saw her speak at an event in Melbourne a couple of years ago. And absolute powerhouse. Yeah,
phenomenal. And lessons in life, business, and I think I'd say mental well-being. And so
that whole book is all around, the importance of sleep. And there's a really big chunk of that especially this mentality of hustle, hustle, hustle. And I say this after a 5-hour sleep to get down here. But the importance of taking that time and making sure your body is ready for the day, it's sort of counter to the, hustle always on type of thing, because you can't be effective if you're always doing that.
Absolutely. And she gets really good at interesting, different perspectives. And so I think it's amazing in terms of the 360-degree kind of vision it provides. So that's what I would say.
Cool. And last one, what social media platform, and you might have already previewed this, is your MVP? And you can either do it as yourself, Stacey, or from the Sharks' point of view.
So for me, I think I touched on it. I'd say Instagram probably. It kind of follows that Thrive Global. It gives me the people that I follow is a pretty good mix. So it gives me, I think, a 360-degree
And so
view
on
of the
Instagram,
world.
are you what's the percentage of you being a consumer versus being a producer?
Probably 80-20. 80 consumer, 20 producer. So I'm weird like that, I guess.
Yeah.
Some people might talk me an internet stalker.
That's a normal ratio. Like that people are doing it for. Hey, I'm following these things. I want inspiration, or I want to keep up to date with in a visual manner. And then, I'll produce when I want to produce, and when there's something happening, I'm not going to be doing something every day. Not everyone can be an Instagram influencer.
Absolutely.
So that leads into where can people follow you on Instagram? What's the handle?
Pix McGee. So please jump in there at PICSMCGEE, I believe.
Yes.
So
We'll put a link in the show notes. And what about from a Sharks point of view? What social media platforms are working the best for the Sharks?
So for Sharks, I would say it's kind of a tie between.
We don't have ties. MVP. We don't have co-MVPs here.
We don't, but we have co-presidents, so yes, we do. I would say from an external perspective, probably Twitter. From an internal perspective, LinkedIn. We've done quite a bit with LinkedIn in terms of sharing our success stories internally and pushing them externally. In terms of connecting with the fans and getting a good pulse on the fans, I think Twitter.
Yeah, so I'm interested in the LinkedIn piece because I love LinkedIn and I love it and I think it's evolving, especially over the last 2 years, to be a bit better data provider. And so is that from a LinkedIn point of view, from a San Jose Sharks brand point of view, or is it that and all the staff leveraging their own personal platform, their own personal pages to say, hey, this is what we're doing at the Sharks, which is raising interests in the San Jose region and also with all your networks. Is it a bit of a combination of both?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We had a lot of successes that we wanted to share this year, and it was a great place for us to do it. It's also a great place for us to showcase the organization, not just what we're doing, but who we are, and I love that. And
it's really important, like, when I'm talking to people about, hey, what they're doing in their career, what they're trying to do. And I've been, on LinkedIn. I was on LinkedIn before Sports Geek, back when I was a geek, and loved it as a platform. And I'm always encouraging people, you're doing great work. Pull your head up occasionally and tell people, or give kudos to people who you work with on LinkedIn.
Agreed.
And be active on LinkedIn. Like, connect with people you're working with, connect with people you're meeting at conferences, because you don't want to be the person that just becomes active when they need to be active. Right? There's nothing more depressing than change his job to currently seeking opportunities, because you should always be seeking opportunities. And don't put up that red flag of, oh, hang on, Stacey's on LinkedIn. What's that mean? Is she looking for a job?
What is she saying?
but you don't, because there's studies that show, and I think Deloitte did a study of their staff of, like, they knew when someone started using LinkedIn more, they were leaving.
Yep.
Right. Whereas if you're consistently using it and consistently linking with people and consistently sharing and engaging on that as a platform, the job opportunities will come in. And I'm not saying do it just a job hop, but it's a really good career and professional development tool.
Absolutely. And, I would go so far, too, as to say it'll help you internally grow your career. There are things that are out there that are available that we can sort of soak up as a sponge that, if you take to your boss or his or her boss, that's a chance to, you don't have to leave to grow.
And that cross-functional conversation doesn't happen enough in corporate.
I agree.
In the corporate world. So if you want another VP or someone else in the organisation to know that you're doing it, yes, you can email them or you can put it on the bulletin board at work. But if you say that in LinkedIn, there's probably more likelihood that gets read and seen in that environment. And so they come past, oh, good work on that project, Stacey. And you're like, how did they know? Oh, they knew via LinkedIn. So it's a terrific, terrific internal corporate comms hack,
yes, absolutely.
so to speak, to make sure people know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for coming on the podcast. How can people connect with you online, Stacy McGranor?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Stacy McGranor. I'm not tricky on that one. We talked about Instagram, Facebook, same thing, Stacy McGranor. Twitter, I believe it's SSMCG. I'm definitely 90-10 on Twitter. I'm 90% follower and 10% tweeter.
There's a lot of lurking in Twitter.
But I promise not to be a keyboard hater.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Download our Facebook campaigns guide at sportsgeekhq.com/FB campaigns.
Thanks again to Stacy McGranor from the San Jose Sharks. You can send her a tweet. SSMCG is her Twitter handle. Or Pix McGee on Instagram, as discussed. As always, the links to connect with Stacy on the platforms of her choice, and you could do so on LinkedIn, I highly suggest connecting with Stacy on LinkedIn. As you said, she's sharing updates from her job that's actually working from an internal comms point of view. I love that hack, Stacy. So yeah, you can always go to the show notes for this show. It's episode 196. So it'll be sportsgeekhq.com/196. There's a little pro tip. Every single episode has a number. That number goes back to the website. So try it sometime. Just sportsgeekhq.com, put in a random number and listen to that episode. As I said, recording this at an airport at an ungodly hour, so it will not go too long. I just want to quickly, I guess, look back at my couple of days in San Francisco. Whirlwind. You can go and see that recap of my Sunday that we discussed, where I went to the San Francisco Giants. Thanks to Bill Schlau for connecting me and hooking me up there. It was great to see the Giants in action and stay tuned. I caught up with Bill for a podcast. We have been circling each other for a while. That will be a future episode. Then also went to the Warriors game and saw an NBA playoff game. Steph Curry going off in real life is just as remarkable as you would think. As a basketball fan, I was really privileged to see it. Thanks to Daniel Brew. Great to connect with you. Thank you for dinner. It was amazing time in the Bay Area. So there's a video of that day, and I guess it's the highs and the lows. And I don't count this as a low, but that Sunday was a great day. Being able to catch two games, talk sports business with people in the industry. It was an awesome day. And then you have days like today where flights get cancelled and you're sleeping at airports and those kind of things. So, it's the ups and downs of running a business like Sports Geek, but I would not have it any other way. As I said, on the way to C2 Montreal, so I'll be able to understand what C2 is and better understand what C2 Melbourne will be like in October. So again, follow my socials. I'll be doing some Instagram stories. I'll have done some Instagram stories, which you can't watch. This is me thinking about airport mind. It won't work, but we will put a bit of content and put together and maybe do some more of these video recaps, which I've been doing recently. I'd love your feedback if you've been watching them either on Facebook channels, either my Facebook channel or the Sports Geek Facebook channel or our YouTube channel. Do you watch them? Do they make sense? I'm using a tool called Vlogit. I think I've mentioned it before. So there's that. Been talking to people. Again, this is parts where I should go, hey, James, edit this out. But I also want you to know this is how things work, especially when you're trying to make sure that you get a podcast out every week. That's about it for me. I'm not going to do too much more. As always, you can simply, if you want to chat with me, if you want to talk about how Sports Geek can help you, please reach out. Sean at sportsgeekhq.com will get me, or you can go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call and book in a call. I'm happy to talk to you about how we go about developing rate cards and the valuation story. How do you value your digital content, your digital assets? How do you commercialize that with your sponsors? Or we can do stuff like we were talking with Stacy, data acquisition. What is your data acquisition strategy? How do you get that data and then start talking them potentially as a ticket buyer or potentially as a member or a season ticket holder? Happy to talk to anybody. And that's pretty much what I'll be doing over the next couple of days in Montreal. I hope the voice holds up for those of you who have been listening for a long time. I have had troubles at conferences and travels and long layovers when I lost my voice at SEAT in Miami. But it did not stop me from doing the welcome address with Christine Stoffel. If you haven't heard that story, you can go back to the archives, or you can look at the presentation back in SlideShare where I did a 45-minute welcome address without speaking. It doesn't quite work in a podcast sense, but it definitely leveraged my improv skills to be able to pull that off. So hopefully I don't need to pull out that trick out of my kit bag while I'm in Montreal. I'll do the smart thing, lots of water, and but maybe I might do a bit of that networking after dark, which I'm famous for at conferences. So I hope to see you at a conference sometime soon, whether it's in Cairns. People are asking me how I'm going to get over my jet lag from this trip. Well, I'm going to get over my jet lag by getting on a plane. I will be in Cairns on Thursday, May 31st, for my final gig with the Sport and Rec Queensland. I really enjoyed the Brisbane one. I'm looking forward to Cairns, so I'm going to go to Cairns for a couple of days to get over jet lag. And then I'll be back at it at Sports Geek, as always. Always working, always hustling, and always looking to help my clients and my podcast listeners. So until next week, we've got Sounds of the Game this week. I have to have Sounds of the Game because I went to games. So the Sounds of the Game this week is when the Warriors fans put up the Warriors chant. And for me, it did have a lot of similarities to the Collingwood chant that rang around the MCG back around 2010, 2011 when Collingwood was at its peak. And there was a lot of similarities because of the game I went to. Steph Curry did the shimmy. And for those who, again, don't know, going into the archives here in episode 196, I was also known for the shimmy when the Collingwood chant was going around. So you can Google that, Cullen and Shimmy. If you have not checked that out on YouTube, tell me that you've checked it out the first time because I've mentioned it now. So stay tuned. Sounds the game. The Golden State Warriors chant going out at Oracle Arena when the Warriors went on that run in that third quarter, which was pretty phenomenal. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Join over 1,000 sports business executives in Sports Biz Slack. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/Slack. Please share your fave episodes of Sports Geek on LinkedIn. Be sure to tag Sean Callanan.
Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources.
Want to chat with Sean? Book a time for a call. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.